Right now, inside your body, a microscopic drama is unfolding. We're about to zoom way in to witness that incredible story, the life and death struggle of your very own cells.
We all know what it feels like to be sick, right? But have you ever stopped to wonder what's actually going on in there? I mean, what does it really look like when a single one of your cells is under attack?
Well, it's definitely not a simple on-off switch. It's this gripping process of adapting, getting hurt, and then maybe repairing. And this process is the very foundation of health and disease. So let's start at the beginning.
First things first, before we can understand what goes wrong, we've got to know what right looks like. This is the everyday life of a healthy, happy cell.
A healthy cell lives in the state of perfect balance called homeostasis. You can just think of it as the cell's happy place. It's a steady state where everything is just right, and it has exactly what it needs to do its job and handle the normal stresses of daily life.
But of course, life isn't always perfectly balanced. So what happens when a cell gets put under pressure? Well, you might think it just breaks, but its first response is actually surprisingly clever.
Instead of just immediately breaking down, cells have this whole playbook of adaptive strategies. They literally change their structure or their function to meet these new demands, all to preserve their ability to work and, most importantly, to survive.
And this is where it gets really cool. This is the playbook in action. So cells can get bigger, that's hypertrophy. The perfect example is a weightlifter's muscles. They can also multiply, just increase their numbers, that's hyperplasia. Or they can do the opposite and shrink down to save energy, which we call atrophy. But maybe the wildest one is metaplasia, where they can actually change their entire type. A smoker's airway, for example, might swap out its delicate cells for a tougher kind of cell. These aren't signs of damage yet. These are brilliant survival tactics.
But you know, even the most brilliant adaptations have their limits. So what happens when the stress just doesn't stop? Well, the cell reaches its breaking point.
And that leads to the critical question, right? What happens when that weightlifter overtrains like crazy, or the irritation in that smoker's lung becomes constant, day in and day out?
When the limits of adaptation are pushed too far, or if the stress is something the cell just can't adapt to at all, the story takes a dark turn. The cell's defenses are overwhelmed, and that's when injury begins.
And the list of potential threats is, well, it's huge. It could be a simple lack of oxygen, which is called hypoxia. It could be physical trauma or radiation. It might be chemical poisons or alcohol. Of course, you've got bacteria and viruses. Sometimes it's even friendly fire from our own immune system. For our cells, life is pretty much a constant navigation through a minefield.
But here's a super critical distinction. Not all injury is a death sentence. There's a big line in the sand between damage the cell can recover from and the point of no return.
So you have two paths. With reversible injury, the cell is definitely sick. It might swell up, but if you remove that stress in time, it can fully recover. It can bounce back. But if that stress keeps going, it crosses a threshold into irreversible injury. At this point, the really vital parts, like the cell's outer wall or its command center, are so damaged that death becomes absolutely inevitable.
So you can see the sequence play out right here. A stressor hits, causing these reversible changes where the cell is struggling, but it can still make it. But if that stress continues, it causes critical damage, pushing the cell right past that point of no return. And from there, it's a one-way path to cell death.
So what does the end of the line actually look like for a cell? It turns out there are two very, very different ways for a cell to die. And how the cell dies matters immensely, not just for the cell itself, but for its entire neighborhood. Is it a clean, controlled exit, or is it a messy, chaotic explosion?
The two fates are called necrosis and apoptosis. So think of necrosis as a violent, messy demolition. It's chaotic, it causes a lot of inflammation, and it damages all the neighboring cells. Apoptosis, on the other hand, is a planned and quiet takedown. The cell neatly dismantles itself, packaging up its parts for recycling with zero collateral damage. It's basically cellular suicide, but it's for the greater good of the whole organism. And this definition is really key. Necrosis isn't just the moment of death. It's the whole messy process of the cell breaking down and basically rotting after it has died, all while still inside a living body.
And here is the ultimate takeaway. This entire story, from adaptation to injury to death, this isn't just a biology lesson. This microscopic drama is the fundamental process that underlies virtually every single disease known to medicine.
So ultimately, our health is decided by these tiny, microscopic battles. Our cells are constantly fighting just to maintain balance in a sea of stressors, which leaves us with a final, powerful question. Knowing this, what choices will you make to help them win their fight?